Good morning, viewers. Today we bring another episode of TI Legal Tips. Our topic for today is the amended Consumer Protection Act 2019. This act is very relevant for us because we all fall within the definition of consumers as per the act. So today we have our expert Mrs. Sushila Varma, Chief Consultant of the Indian Lawyer and Allied Services. So ma'am, can we have a brief Q&A on this topic?
Okay, Arjav, let's begin with the Q&A. A very simple topic, I must say, but it's extremely important as all viewers at some point or the other are consumers, and this tips will definitely help them in determining their rights and enforcing their rights if they have been shortchanged.
So my first question to you, ma'am, is who is a consumer under the Consumer Protection Act?
Well, to put it very simply, any person who buys goods or services is deemed to be a consumer under the Consumer Protection Act 2019. But that does not include people who have purchased goods or services for commercial reasons or for their business. They will be excluded from the definition of consumer.
Very well said, ma'am. So my next question would be who are the persons who can file a complaint under the Consumer Protection Act 2019?
Under the Consumer Protection Act, there is a list of some 7 types of persons who can make a complaint under the Consumer Protection Act. Since it would be easier for the viewer to understand it if we show it on the slide, I am reproducing it on the slide.
Then coming to our next question, it will be where can a consumer file a complaint if he is aggrieved?
Now coming to pecuniary jurisdiction. When we say pecuniary jurisdiction, the Consumer Protection Act has laid down certain slabs by which a complainant can decide as to which court he or she has to approach. The first court is the district forum, in which claims for up to rupees 1 crore are entertained. Claims which are beyond rupees 1 crore and go up to 10 crores are looked into by the State Consumer Forum, and all original complaints where the claim is beyond rupees 10 crores will go to the National Commission or the NCDRC.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering that question. So moving on to the next. So what are the general instances where the consumer can file a complaint?
A consumer can file a complaint in 5 types of instances. The first would be if he or she alleges deficiency of services. The second, if there is a manufacturing defect in the product that he or she has purchased. If there is an unfair contract that has been made by the seller while selling the goods. Fourthly, if the complainant has been a victim of misleading advertisements which has prompted him or her to buy the goods. And finally, the consumer can claim damages in case the consumer has been caused some harm by the product that he or she has purchased.
Very well explained, ma'am. So our next question will be how can a consumer file a complaint?
Well, when one is filing a civil case, it could be any case. Of course, over here we are specifically dealing with the consumer laws. One generally begins by issuing a notice from an advocate to the seller or the giver of the services, complaining about whatever deficiency is there in the services, or if there's a manufacturing defect, etc., etc. So this way one puts to notice the seller or the manufacturer regarding the defect, and if they rectify it, well and good. If they fail to do so, then one has to file a complaint in the respective consumer forums depending on both pecuniary and territorial jurisdiction. There is also a helpline that is available for consumers to lodge their complaint. Details of the helpline are given on the video and can be noted.
Well, it can be seen that Indian government has launched the portals where the consumer can file the complaints. So coming to the next question, it will be what are the reliefs that can be claimed by a consumer?
Generally, a consumer, when he approaches the consumer courts, looks for either refund, replacement, or removal of defects of the goods that he or she has purchased. Now, it is not as if in every case a refund will be allowed. The court will first try to see whether the manufacturer is ready to replace the goods, or whether if the goods have a defect, it can be repaired. If it can't be done and there is an inherent defect in the goods, only then will the court direct that the goods should be replaced. Apart from this, a consumer can also request that a particular good which is hazardous to a consumer should be removed from the market. Over and above that, a consumer can also complain about an unfair or restrictive trade practice, and thereafter it is up to the court to decide whether it is an unfair or restrictive practice and pass an order accordingly.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering that. So, our last question would be how can someone appeal if he or she is not satisfied with the order of the lower forum?
Under the Consumer Act, we have a hierarchy of courts. So, if you've gone to the district forum and you're not happy, you can go to the next court, which is the state forum. If you're not happy with the state forum, then you go to the National Consumer Forum, which is the highest in the hierarchy of courts. Apart from that, you also have an appeal. The provision is provided in the Consumer Protection Act, and one can go under Section 67 of the Consumer Protection Act directly to the Supreme Court if one has a case that can go in appeal. Now, let me briefly touch upon two cases, one of which has been passed by the National Commission and the other by the Supreme Court of India. In a matter called Chola Mandalam Investment Finance versus Hemant Balchand, the National Commission in a 2018 judgment was of the opinion that there was deficiency in services by the finance company when they forcefully took possession of the tractor from the consumer and sold it to a third party. The court held that in forcibly taking possession of the tractor without taking the correct route of approaching the court would be deemed to be deficiency in services. And the court held that because the finance company was deficient in services, they had to pay a penalty. Now let us look at a 2021 Supreme Court judgment in which the Supreme Court held against the builders for an unfair trade practice because their contracts were one-sided and only favored the builder and not the consumer. This matter has been reported in a case titled as Irio Grace Realtech versus Abhishek Khanna 2021. A small piece of advice to all viewers is that you cannot take these legal tips to be legal advice from a lawyer. These are only generalized tips given to the layman to understand how the law works. If you want to take legal advice, you must approach a lawyer and let the lawyer review the facts as well as the documentation that is available to give you proper legal advice. If you have liked this video, please like, share and subscribe so that we are encouraged to make many more such videos which are done in the interest of the general public. Thank you and Namaste.